This is the audience inside here in New York. Can we take it outside real quick? Show the audience outside in New York. There's the audience outside in New York. It's colder in here. Really, it is. Shh. Maybe not. All right. I want to go to Ben Sherwood, who is with us in, where are you? In California? In L.A. Yeah, look at his party behind him. He's all alone. Anyway, Ben, you're really one of the guys who really kind of, reading your book, The Survivors Club, it just kind of all fell into place here. You talked about a couple of principles that are important that I want to touch on. One is just gathering like this, being surrounded by like-minded people. I am afraid that people, through political correctness and everything else, just kind of shut up and they don't talk to each other and they're afraid to express what they really believe, and they think they're alone, and that leads to trouble. What did you find when you were talking to people who have survived all kinds of calamities?
Survivorship is about community, and the world's most effective survivors, the most effective thrivers, people who beat the odds again and again, have communities around them. If you talk to doctors, for instance, they'll tell you that the size of the crowd in the emergency room and in the waiting room outside, that size of that crowd, it's sort of an X factor that contributes to the survival of the patient in the operating room. So community is incredibly important, and the opposite of community, isolation, is very dangerous. In fact, there are studies from all kinds of universities, like Berkeley and Stanford and Michigan, that show that people who are socially isolated, people who are alone, who do not have that community around them, are significantly at greater risk, get this, of dying in the next 9 years. 2 times more likely to die in the next 9 years if you're socially isolated than if you have a strong community around you.
Ben, is this why we shout each other down? Is this why we call each other racists or hate mongers or whatever, just to shut you down and put you back into your cave and be quiet? Because if they can do that, then you just kind of wither. Whatever you're working on or believe just kind of withers and dies.
So the interesting thing I found is that people who can overcome that are people who don't need sort of that giant sense of community. Community means your neighbor. Community means your street. And the survivors that I met who were members of that club, the people who beat the odds, they're folks who just have that street, that church, that synagogue. They have those people around them. It's not a big sense, it's a small sense, the small sense of community.
Now, when I first talked to you, Ben, we were talking on the radio program, and you were starting to talk about God and how important you found God to be from all of these survivors. And I asked you, I said, haven't you written for the New York Times? I mean, you're supposed to have like garlic and everything around God. But you found that, and this is one of the principles, in fact, it is our second principle, if we can shoot it up here. The second principle is I believe God and He is the center of my life. I get a lot of mail from people who say, Glenn, you can't believe in God? It's oh, God, we weren't founded on principles of God. Yeah, yes, we were. I hate to point that out. But it's not theology. It's not religion. It's God. You said that when you were interviewing these survivors that, well, tell the story when you went down to military training, what you were told.
I went down to Pensacola, Florida, and my goal was to find the #1 secret that survivors, the world's greatest survivors, share. And I met with this little guy who's sort of the dean of survival studies in the Navy. He wrote the book on how to survive on land and sea. And he told me, when I said to him, what's the #1 thing you need to know to survive life? And he looked at me and he said, without missing a beat, faith in God. That's it. His friends were ex-prisoners of war. He's trained people for 40 years in how to survive in the most hostile environments. And he said that when it all comes down to it, at the very end of the day, faith in God, faith in family, faith in friends, That's what's going to get you through the toughest times. That's it. Number one thing.
Okay. By the way, I just have to tell you, America, this. Ben was supposed to be here on the set with us, and I mean, he's, you know, doing all this work to promote his book and everything else, and I asked him to be on this show, and this is a big show, obviously, and he actually turned me down because of the fourth principle. The fourth principle is the family is sacred. My spouse and I are the ultimate authority. It's his wife's birthday today, and he's in Los Angeles, California. He turned me down to come out to New York. I even invited him to take his wife and bring his wife on the plane with him, and he said, "No, sir, we've got to be home together. It's her birthday." I salute you, sir, for living your principles. Thank you very much, Ben. Let me go to Patty Ann Brown now. She's monitoring a brand new website that is the912project.com, and I want to put up on the website some great quotes about from Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson about God, so you can see why it's important and what our founders understood about God. But Patty, what are you seeing on the website? What are people?
A lot of comments already, and you all have to check it out. You are not alone. You now have an online community, a think tank for ideas and solutions and suggestions. You can comment about the principles and values. There's also a vent tab, and a lot of you are already using that to vent. I'll just read one comment. From Cher L, who says, "We feel disenfranchised and frustrated. My husband, family, and I have been living by the 9 principles and 12 values all of our lives. We work hard and put God and family first, but now we are punished for it. We're attacked and we're tired. Our government is supposed to work for us, but it hasn't heard us in a long time. They will hear us tonight." That's one comment. Again, that website, the912project.com, the912project.com.
And 912, by the way, is not to the 9 principles and the 12 values. It's the person that you promised yourself, the person you didn't even have to think about. After 9/11, 9/12 happened the next day, and we all stood in line to give stuff, give blood that was never, ever used. It wasn't needed. We just knew what was right. We know it in here. All you have to do is reconnect. But our government told us, go shopping. That's our patriotic duty. It's not. It's reconnect with values and principles that will change the world. And let me tell you something else. The reason why I wanted to put this website together is because not only do you need to connect and be able to know that, you know, that you're not alone, but you also need to know a couple of things. Everybody always says to me, "Oh, gee, I wish we had a special interest group. How come we don't have a lobby, you know, representing us?" You're the American people. You already have that, but you've lost confidence in yourself. So when you gather together, and when this website becomes bigger and bigger, and more people join it, and they're talking, already Meetup.com said this is the biggest movement they've seen since what's his name, Howard Dean. Since Howard, remember, he was on the front page of Newsweek and everything else saying, "Look at this, it's grassroots, blah, 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 blah." You ain't going to be on any cover of Newsweek magazine, I guarantee you. But I tell you, the politicians are going to ask you for your support. And you give it to them when they demonstrate the values and principles that you believe in. All right. When was the last time you actually heard a story of real self-sacrifice? 2 amazing stories, 2 amazing friends of mine. Next. Is that Jordan, Utah there? Is that where that is? Is that no one's? You guys are crazy in Utah. All right. You know, when I first talked about doing this special, and they brought down the set, they had all these things that, you know, right, we're going to build this thing. It's going to look like a spaceship. It'll be great. And I said, you know what? Just put a kitchen table down on the set, will you? And everybody looked at me and went, "You want a kitchen table on the set?" And I said, "Yeah." And they went to Pottery Barn. They brought back these pictures of these great tables. And I said, "No, I just want one." In fact, I'm really upset that they put the tablecloth on it too, because I just wanted it to look like my kitchen table. Because what I want you to do is I want you to start meeting with your friends around the kitchen table. These guys, they're not all superstars. Well, I mean, there's a couple here, people that you'll know, but they're not all superstars. They're just my friends. And I have invited my friends over here in the last week. I started doing something I'm going to ask you to do as well. And that is get together with your friends and talk about the country. Talk about our principles. Talk about the values. Learn about our founding fathers. Do we have the books? Where are the books? Underneath everybody's seat here in the audience, there's some books here.